To go to the screen share.
Okay, okay, okay. Sound better, huh?
Video will get started.
Alright. I thought it's already started anyway. Alright. Okay, anyway, like AutoMapper, I'll come to that later because it's not the main focus. And one framework called Jasmine. Anybody knows about Jasmine? You are working on Angular. Okay, Jasmine is a unit testing framework for like this AngularJS. Karma is one test runner for this AngularJS again. Require.js, it's not required now. I mean, but it's an important tool while you are building, like the SPA, like client-centric, development. So I'll tell about that. React.js is anyway not required, but it's good to know. Okay. Now, model view control, as I told, like it's a model your data. In case of Angular, basically view comprises of two things. One is your template, which is pure HTML, okay, which define the structure of your application or the maybe page, okay, and the data. So the data is bound to the like the HTML structure or the like maybe a div, maybe a text box, maybe any other control basically. Okay, controller that holds the business logic, it manipulates the model. Okay, automatically the view is updated. Scope is the container of your model. All right. So like everything like you define within the scope basically, like the model basically that falls into some sort of scope. All right. So if you want to access your models basically they will be only accessible through the scope. All right. It's the glue between your controller and the view. All right. Like I told, like within the controller you update the model through scope basically, and the view will automatically update it. And the view you update the model basically. Again, that falls in the scope basically. I'll tell what is the scope and how it affects the model, and the update happens in the also controller. All right. Yeah. So the next thing is that like okay, let me you all right. Let me start with a small example. Okay, while it gets started. Okay, so while it gets started, the AngularJS stats, the first and like model view and controller, they are integral part of the MVC architecture as part of this AngularJS. But the most like other like the most important another feature of AngularJS is called directive. Right? Directive is what it's a marker, like it's like another attribute. It can be two things basically. It can be an attribute, it can be an element. All right. So it's a marker which defines the new behavior of the DOM element. Okay, I'll show you like how. So if you want to get started with the AngularJS, first thing you need to do is to define a new marker. Like I mean use a marker which is comes with AngularJS, which is known as ng-app. All right. You know about ng-app, anybody? No idea? No idea at all? All right. A little bit of idea. Okay. So, okay. No problem. Anyway, don't worry. So here is my, like you want to get started with the AngularJS. How basically? So first of all, you need to go to the AngularJS site. You need to get that AngularJS, like this libraries, the JS files downloaded first of all. Okay. You can do it in two ways. First of all, you can use some tools like Yeoman, which is scaffold application for you. Okay, you install that, Yeoman, then you type in some commands that will automatically install. You can do it through Yeoman or maybe a Bohr. That's another tool basically. So what it do, it will resolve all the dependencies and everything. It will create a scaffold application and just give a very basic template, okay, to get started with. Other way around is that, but you do not always get that opportunity basically, because you are not going to start an application. Maybe most of the time you do not get started with the application from the scratch. You may need to build, integrate Angular JS feature into an existing application. All right. In that case, what you need to do is that you need to go to the site, you download that Angular JS, JavaScript libraries and everything. Then you create a folder just like any other, like you create a script folder or maybe any other folder. Then what I did is that like I added all those Angular JS files basically. One is your like Angular animate, cookies, loader, mux, resources, root. Everything is not required at all. Okay, but like the first file that you need is the Angular.js basically. Okay, so once you add it basically, so the first thing is to add that Angular.js file. Then you need to create a shell file. In case of single page application, what it happens is that like in case of traditional application, what happens? You load a login page or maybe a home page or whatever. Then you have a button, you have some links, and you have a text box maybe. You click on that one. The request goes to the server side, and then some processing happens. The page is entirely loaded by another page, isn't it? That happens. Maybe like you will be using some headers, footers, which you can cache, just like different applications provide some kind of mechanism, like ASP.NET provides a master page, ASP.NET MVC provides some kind of layouts and everything, partial templates and everything. But other thing that you need to do is that you need to send the data, information back, or you need to request a file from the server. Then it is loaded. Entire processing happens in the server side. It is loaded. But in case of single page application, what you need to do is that first you need to have a cell, which is the basic template, which will always be there. It may be home page, whatever you may define with some header and footers basically. Okay. Then within that template, you need to define a ng view. Okay. So that ng view is your link to other partial templates or the templates you can say. Okay. So now you need a login page. Okay. You just paste the login page and plug in into that view, ng view. You need maybe you need a home page. You need to just paste that HTML and plug in into that view. All right. You need some other customer page, maybe a tax page or maybe a project page, whatever, like depending upon the requirement and an application type. You build it and just inject into that ng view. That's all. All right. Okay. So I started with a very simple cell called index.html. Do not worry about like the structure. Yeah, but I added some CSS. It's pretty simple, Okay. So and yeah. So here is the body, right? I added all the JavaScript file onto the end of the body, like the region, and I added something called data ng app. Okay, and I am writing some name, project fair. Okay, I will tell like where I have defined and how it has been done basically. But if you see, like I have included the script / Angular JS file as the first file, apart from this bootstrap mean.js jQuery. All right. So Angular JS is the second, like the third JavaScript file that I have included. Okay. So once this JavaScript file is included, basically the application start to recognize like this is Angular application. No, wait. Okay. So what happens is that let me. For the sake of simplicity, I'm doing some modifications, then I'll tell you. Oh, okay. Right. All right, it's completely a blank page. Okay, I have nothing as such. Now what I did is that let me do one thing. Just remove this one. This is a, I mean, this is a blank HTML page, you can say. I have just added some style sheets, just added some JavaScript files, and I have nothing in the body basically. So it's, that's why it's the reason why it is not showing anything as such. All right. So now I'll start with the first Angular, concept. It's the directive basically. So this double curly braces that you add, this is also a directive. All right. So I'll write it's 1 plus 2. So what will be shown in the browser? What do you think? 3. Okay, it's 1 plus 2, right? Why is that? Because it's a string basically. So whatever you like, I write hello world basically. It will show the hello world. So nothing else. Okay. So now we'll just inject AngularJS onto this application. All right, and see what happens. All right. I'll just add a simple directive here. That's pretty nice, right? So 1 plus 3 is equal to, 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, right? All right. So how did it happen actually? Let's have some discussion, okay? Let us do not it as a presentation, whatever. How did it happen?
We have symbolized that it is Angular and it detects that Angular.
All right. Yeah, you can better tell.
Expression so 1 plus 2
All right. Okay. All right. So yeah, good. I mean, all right. So whenever you add the ng app directive, basically, the Angular comes into the picture. That's known as bootstrapping. In AngularJS terminology, it's known as bootstrapping. That means the AngularJS only comes into life. All right, not before that. Say, I will do one thing. All right. Here I deleted this one. I added a div. All right. And here. Yeah. Now I am refreshed. Now I am refreshing. Oh, what did it happen? Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So. Yeah. So anything falls out of, so when like you define the ng app basically, okay, so it defines a Angular context. So whatever falls within the Angular context will be treated as Angular application. That so the Angular will be, I'll start recognize them basically, not before that, not after that. Anything that falls within the Angular context will only be recognized by AngularJS. That's simple as this. Which page? Here, right? Yeah, yeah. I mean, this has to be present. Otherwise, the AngularJS will not be able to, it will not be loaded on the browser. Basically, you need to load the JavaScript files. Okay. All right. So this term is known as bootstrapping. All right. So whenever what happens, it's a two phase step basically. I mean, when AngularJS, looks at the ng app, okay, it starts, the page is loaded, then it looks at the ng app, it starts a process of compiling, all right. So this DOM, it starts manipulating the DOM elements, all right. Then the second phase is known as linking, right, where the data, actual data, okay, is linked to the DOM elements. Then the entire page is presented to you basically, all right. Okay. I'll come to that. It's an interesting question actually. I'll come to that. All right. So it's in fact, I'll remove this one. What will happen? Will it work or it will not work? No idea. Okay, let's see. It still works. All right. So yeah. So It's working. Okay. Okay. So the reason why I have added that is that like you can define a name to that application, ng app in fact. Okay. So it's a term called module inside AngularJS. Okay. You can have multiple modules in your application. All right. Each module can have their own services, their own controllers, and everything. It's a like you think it in your application basically you are defining different modules, right? Each module maybe some kind of class libraries and everything. It's like that. All right. So you need separate components. Right? You may be a customer module, you may be a maybe a task module, you may be a shopping cart module. So they can be nicely integrated into each other. You have your own separate functionality services, you have your controllers, you have your own interaction layer, and they can be nicely integrated in later in the the communication can happen through the modules basically, different modules. All right.
So when it gets boundaries.
Yes. Yes. All right. Now next we'll come to a concept called data binding. Okay, I told you like the AngularJS is a two-way binding, right? All right. What do you mean by two-way binding? Meaning like the view when the view is updated, the model is automatically updated, right? All right, we'll see. So it's a text. Input type is text. All right. Maybe I'll simply what I'll do is that I'll add a lab. Okay. So I'll add a new directive called data ng model. Right? Maybe it's a text, data. Simple as this. Right, I didn't do anything. These lines are pretty simple, Like you have two input text box, all right, and a label, simple as this. And I added data ng model. This data is not required in fact, but this is if you want to do HTML5 validations, this data is in fact required. Okay, so you can simply write the ng model in fact. All right, okay. Even you can write like this, maybe like. This is also perfectly acceptable. All right. Okay, we'll see. Now, let me refresh the page. Okay, I have two text boxes. I haven't written a single line of code. I mean, don't worry that I haven't done any magic. In fact, okay, it's just very simple page, no code, nothing. You can try it out a blank page in it. So I'm trying. What I'm doing is that. No JavaScript, nothing. You just need to write the data ng model and bind it to the same model. Model meaning it's a variable, nothing else. It's a simple variable, JavaScript variable, or JavaScript object. You can more accurately tell it is a JavaScript object. All right. So whenever what happens is that like when you update this value of this text box, that JavaScript value is automatically updated. Okay. In turn, it's already bound to the another text box. This text box is automatically updated. It's also bound to through that directive, interpolation directive called curly braces, and the value is automatically magically updated. You do not need a single line of JavaScript, not a single line of jQuery lines and everything. In case of jQuery, what you would have to done actually, you'll have fire an event on change event, right? And then on query, you will have to pick that ID or maybe by class name or whatever. Then the text value you should put it as that text value. But here you do not need anything. AngularJS automatically handles everything. The data binding, it's a two-way binding. How is the two-way binding? I'll show you. You update here like this. This is also updated. Okay, and this like when I update like the text box, the value is automatically updated in the second text box. All right, the value is automatically updated on the label basically. Okay, this is known as two-way binding. And this like this one, this interpolation directive, it's a single one-way binding basically, because you will not be able to update the view. It's just like a string basically. So this is treated as a single one-way binding, and the other way around, like using the text box, it's a two-way binding. That's magic, right? I mean, is it magic or not magic? You agree? All right. Okay, people who have already worked on AngularJS, maybe it's pretty simple for them. They have been using for long, but this is not what you are going to do in your real world exam. I mean, application basically. This is some pretty, simple example that I have given. We'll see a real world example. All right. Okay. Let me move this one. There are other directives like like ng switch, ng if, all right. So if you are using ng switch, all right, you bind that ng switch to some model, all right. If you are, let's say you have two, I mean, you have a radio button group, okay. I mean, upon clicking the radio button, you want to display different UIs, all right. So you can add a ng switch. So the first checkbox is, I mean, the radio button is clicked, you show the first UI. It may be applied to a tab, anything that you think of basically. But the beauty of is that the structure and the logic will be separated. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm coming to your question basically. What is that, like the module, right? So you can define a module or you may not even, all right? But when you are dealing with a large scale applications, okay, you need to deal with a module, right? You will have to separate out your business logic. You will have to have your own controller services, the interaction database, intellectual layer, so that you will have to have your own separate modules basically, all right? So here, like I have created the project Fair module, all right? Let's see how it happens. I have created a single, app. For a second, forget about these things. So when you create Angular module, it's simple as such. The var f1, maybe you create a new module, okay, Angular. Let me copy from here. Simple. So this line creates Angular module, all right. So this module can be attached to a ng app. You may have multiple pages, all right. So you can attach this module to different ng app directive basically, okay. That separates out your layers basically, that the views, the controllers and everything, okay, all right. So within this module, you can have your own controllers, you can have your own services, you can have your own filters, all right. And what you see here is known as that comes as a dependency injection, but I will tell what is that later on. Okay. Now we'll learn something called routing. That's the most important part of single page application. Every MVC application supports some kind of routing. That means you click on this link, okay, it will take you to the page, that page, all right. And like you will click on this button, it will take you to that page. That's called routing, nothing else, because the URL will change accordingly. It will map to a controller. The data will be returned from the the template, and the data will be returned from the server side basically. Okay, that's called routing. All right. In case of Angular, basically, it provides a like module called ng route. All right. So first of all, if you want to have this ng routing into the AngularJS application, you will have to include a JavaScript file called ng route. This Angular route, Angular route.js, just like this Angular.js. So once this is, you have included this JavaScript file, what you will do is that you will inject that into this module. In case of the project Fair, how this injection is done? It will be like it will be like a I have injected so many dependencies, but in case of that will be simple. Right. So this injects the ng route, onto this module basically, so that now this module stat recognizes the Angular module. I mean the Angular routing capability. All right. Then you will have to have you just need to remember these things. How you need to configure, how basically you just need to understand the concept behind how it works basically. Then remember some kind of JavaScript functions and everything. Then you can call it. So you can define a config function where you can provide the route provider, and you need to write like route provider dot when I change this is the path of the URL basically. When I change it to login, then it will use a controller called login controller. I'll talk about this one later on. And it will go to the it will load that template URL called login.html, which resides in the app login folder basically. That's all. When you type in projects or maybe a link fires these projects basically, then the project controller, it will go to the project controller, and then it will try to load the projects.html. That's all. All right. So whenever it doesn't find anything as such, then you can the default it will redirect to the home page. Simple. Route provider.when login, then you move to the template URL, login.html. When it doesn't find anything, by default it will be like that. Home page will be loaded. That's all. Okay, we'll see that in action. Okay, so to make that, I mean this routing working basically, you need to add a single line called dib data ng view. Okay, so you define the header, in fact, then you define the footer here. Maybe I have just left it blank, but you can add your footers and everything. Maybe you can have your own side bars and everything. Then you will define a view where the templates will be loaded, any HTML page basically. But that HTML page won't have that HTML body tags and everything. It will simply start with the div, maybe anything like you take it as a partial template. All right, so that will be loaded onto this view tag. Okay, let's see. So I typed in now. This is by default it is going to the home page. I'll type in, let's say xxx, it will not find that route and it will go to the home page, right? And I will type in login, it will load the login page, right? If you type in something else, maybe which will not find, I just want you that it will go to the home page. Simple as this, right? All right. But this is the header part basically, which resides in that index cell page basically. Okay, that doesn't change. Okay. So I click on the login, then I go to the login. Oh. Okay, it's loading some data. Because this page is responsive, that's why it's behaving like with a small resolution impact. Otherwise, it was high resolution. It comes as a side by side. Anyway, okay. So we learned about this routing. Then, yeah, I'll come to the home page. I'll show some interesting things basically. Second. Yeah. So it's already 12:15. I mean, it's a huge topic, so it's taking time, in fact. And with the fact that most of the guys you do not know about AngularJS, it's hard to explain. Go to the next level basically. Okay, anyway, we'll come to the concept called controller. All right, we have already seen like how the routing works, how two-way binding works basically, but we were discussing about something called, so that we know like we know about view basically. That's the HTML template. We know about models basically. Now we'll go to the controller, which is the MVC, which will complete the MVC basically. Okay, so let's say you have an input, as I just show you. Right, and I'm typing a button. Right. Simple. Here, okay. And I'm just writing data ng data ng model. So let's say anything like the text value. And all right. Okay. So let's say I'm writing here hello. All right. So when I'm deleting this data is also deleted. Let's say I want to do that I click on this clear button and the data will be cleared out. All right. Okay. So the one way we can do is that we'll have to attach it to data ng pick. This is where this Angular, this button is bind to the click event, all right? But this is a declarative programming, unlike the jQuery and everything, where you have a programming model. This is more on the declarative side, basically, all right? And what you can do is that text data. That's all. That's all you need to do. Let me refresh this page. Why it takes so much time? Yeah. The word and clear. Data is automatically cleared because it updates the model basically. Okay. But usually you do not, let's say this is a single line. Maybe you want to have multiple, have a business logic within this click event. Okay, so how can do?
Can you different multiple ng model in one line? So there are two text box, independent text box, and I will just press clear. Both are.
Yes, yeah. I mean, what you want to do is that you want to have two text box basically, right? So you are not updating, you are not dealing with this view of the text box basically. You are only updating that model, which is the text data in this case. Okay. So you type in something, this is updated, and you clear.
Both are independent.
Yeah.
Then you will do different multiple model.
No. This is a single model basically. That's the text data. I told you, like the model is nothing but a JavaScript object. So it's the same reference basically. All right. So you are referring to the same text data here on the button click as well as the label as well as the input basically.
I think what is suspicious from data model is different. Yeah, text boxes. Okay, you can clear it because see, the button what it is doing is it is executing the JavaScript. Text data is equal to null.
Yeah.
Okay, but in JavaScript, so you can write any JavaScript statement.
Yeah, I'm not sure like what you are asking actually.
So what he is asking is, let's say you put first text box,
Uh-huh.
text data, second text box, data model is text data one box.
Oh, all right, all right. You have two different models basically. You can do that. Okay, so that's what I'm coming to basically. So let's say if you have text data two here, okay, that's not going to happen. All right, so you can have like multiple lines. Okay, but instead of that, yeah, instead of that, you can write a controller. As I told, you can have number of lines or more business logic wired into that controller basically. Okay, so in the real world, projects, you are not going to just clear a value basically. On the bottom click, you may be posting some data. You can take a huge page with the different inputs, forms, checkbox, radio buttons. You are going to post it to the server. You just need to get the data and post it to the server basically. There you need a controller. All right. Okay, let's see. So I have a controller. So I will write something. Here the scope comes in the picture. Scope dot, you tell me something like on data clear. Okay. So you define a function here. So here you write scope dot text data is equal to, that's all. You go to this page HTML and you remove this one. Home controller, yeah, on data clear. You need to do this one as well. All right, you typed in something, this is not updating because there are two different models. All right, you typed here, then you are going to do, so that updates the models basically, so it clears all the data. Fine. Okay, I think I will miss out a lot of things. Yeah. Okay, now think, you are building a large huge application. You have hundred of controllers, right? You are not going to put everything into the one single component basically, right? So it will be huge and bloated, the file will be bloated. Will Second thing is that, say you think you are building a shopping cart solution, or maybe a project management system, where you are building like fetching the number of projects you have in the, let's say you are showing a list of projects, okay, and you are fetching all the projects from the database. All right, so you have multiple pages, and one is your dashboard, maybe another user specific, your pages, maybe some other pages. All right, where you are everywhere you are displaying the number of projects basically, the list of projects. Okay, when you log into the when the user will log into that that project management system, it will land it up on that dashboard, and it will fetch all the data project list from the database, and it will show up that project list. All right, so what you can do is that you can just simply create three controllers, one for the dashboard, other for that the user specific page, other for the like some other page basically. Three different controllers you write, which will connect to the database and load it basically. Okay, but thereby you are replicating the same business logic over and over in three different controllers. What you can do is that you can write a service. Okay, service is again another one JavaScript function, you can say. It's more of a JavaScript object, right, which is basically a singleton, okay, which are substitutable. Okay, so when I say singleton means in the lifetime only the AngularJS will, when you create a define a service basically, okay, and when you use service, AngularJS will find only one reference to that service object. It will not be replicated elsewhere. No two object will be created for one service, and this will be handled. This will be handled by, handled by AngularJS itself. You do not need to worry about. What you need to do is that you just need to define a service only. All right. How we'll do that? We'll see. Okay. So now let's see. Let's see. I am defining app factory. So this is the syntax of like creating a new service basically. Maybe like a home service. So what I'll do, I'll just maybe define a var. Very simple. I'm doing a very simple example basically. Return home. With this service, I'm doing nothing. I'm creating a variable, JavaScript variable of object, you can say, then returning that object. Now I want to use this home service within the home controller. All right. So how do I do that? So what I'll do is that I will inject as a dependency onto this home controller. And how is that? Like very simple. I'll add it here. I'll add the home service. All right. Here what I'll do is that home service dot text data I'm doing nothing basically. If you see that I'm just delegating some responsibility to the service instead of directly updating that text data and text data to models basically. Okay, I'm taking one more service, all right, and just defining that variable and setting that to null strings basically, empty strings, and then returning. That's all. I'm simply think it as I'm delegating some responsibility to another component, and I'm using that component within this home controller. That's all. 12:30. I'll just 5-10 minutes. I'll just try to wrap up. Okay. I didn't know, like, yeah, everybody is new to this one, so better to know the basics first of all. Yeah. Something basically. All right. Okay. Okay. Likewise, your services, you can define your own directives. Okay. You can have your filters. Filters is what, like, you have some data. Okay. You want to transform that the data to a new format. Then you can do it. Right. Let me give an example. Yeah. All right. So what I have done is that, if you look at this one, I have a text box and I have a button. Simple. Okay. I'll type something and I will click on the add and it will create a new task. It will insert into the database. All right. Okay. Now what I'll do is that let me do it like. Okay. Anyway. So I can add like a anyway. So like I added 2 tasks basically. Okay. When there are repeatable data, basically you can use an attribute called ngRepeat. Okay. And the ngRepeat, let me go to the tags. Yeah. See, what I've done is that, like, it's a unordered list basically UL, and each li, what I have done is that it's a data ngRepeat, and which text. I mean this the backlog task list is an array in fact. Okay, and whenever that data, I mean what I'm doing is that I have a task controller. all right, where I have added add function, all right, and these functions takes the task title as a task or task title, okay, and this creates a new task, and this uses a task service. As I told you, like you can have a separate service which will do the task service is nothing, but it creates like some kind of Ajax call through resources or the HTTP methods basically, and call it to the the database and insert the data. So once the data is inserted, in fact, okay, so this I am updating this array, which is the backlog. This is C. This resides in the scope basically. Okay. So I add something. I type in something. I click on the add button, which calls the add task, and that object will return from the API and from the database basically. And I am just simply adding into this backlog list, and automatically it is displayed on this UI basically. I am not doing any kind of DOM manipulation. All right. This is one part, and the second part is that let's say you have three categories of these tasks. One is urgent and important, important and urgent, urgent not important, and not urgent and not important. Okay. What I want to do is that if I click on the urgent and important, it should move to this urgent and important category. All right. So if I click on the important and not urgent, it will move to the important and not urgent category. Okay. So one way you can think it as of that you can create four different arrays for four different categories. Okay. You can create some like you have the main array, right? You create four different arrays. You can filter this data and put it in the different array, and this array can be bound to the ng repeat. All right. Other way around in the AngularJS you can do through filters. What you can do is that you can define a filter just like this one, task filter.js, all right, which takes the actual array, all right, and this task type maybe one. You can put you can use your own logic, all right. In case I'm just using urgent, important, these are the tasks in the task type basically, all right. So according to that I filter that array and return a new array. So only if I say I have 10 tasks with having only 5 tasks are the urgent and important, when I call the filter, only 5 tasks will be returned. All right. In that case, see, what I am doing is that I am just doing tags in the backlog list, and the tags type is equal to urgent and important. So this is the filter format. Okay. So you see, like another example, simple example I am giving, that this task has a due date. All right. If I do not, this is filter format is that like you provide that input, you like have a pipe delimited symbol, and then provide the format of the that like that filter basically. Okay. I'm removing this one and just refreshing. See, if you look at this UI basically, it is trying to display it. Of course, this is not like quite legible, but it's trying to display the entire date string basically. Okay, but if you want to show only the date of that day of that like that due date, what you can do is that you can use a filter, predefined filter in AngularJS, which is date the dd. Okay, and you refresh. What I did? Okay, yeah. So display the only that date part, the day part basically, 0, 1 out of that string basically. This is how filter works. All right. So I'll quickly move to the other things. Yeah, the most important thing that I want to discuss is like how to integrate that with RESTful API basically. Looks like it will take another 15-20 minutes, but I'll not spend, it will not waste that much of time. All right. So everybody might have worked with some kind of API services, RESTful, like you are comfortable with. What is RESTful API? Anybody, please?
You think that it's related to the
If you have ever worked on the web services, basically, you can find two types of web services. All right. One is your SOAP web services, which passes some kind of XML data mostly through SOAP packets and everything. You can of course return JSON data, okay, by through some formatting and everything. Mostly it deals with the SOAP packets. In case of RESTful services, specifically, it deals with the resources, all right? And like it will be simple, like you call one URI, it will return the data. You call an URI, it will add a new data. It will call an URI, okay? Call a URI basically, it will update some data. So you do not need to deal with the complexity of parsing the data, JSON and everything. All that you need to do is to pass an URI. Let's quickly view. So I have designed a API basically using Web API ASP.NET Web API basically. So what you can do is that when you use the RESTful services, it will be like this JSON data is written from the database basically. I do not need to write single line of coding programming logic as such, like to send that data and everything. You can do that. You can test it through the browser. There is a tool called Postman. I think I can show you. It's a pretty nice tool that you can test it out. This building APIs, it will return all the data in the JSON format basically. Okay, if you want to get the number like the tags with ID 3 basically, you can pass this URL and it return only that this tags with ID 3. Okay, if you want to add a new task basically. Okay, so what you can do is that this will be the tasks and it will have the post parameter task. You can do it in the data. You can send it as a hard task and it will create a new. The task ID is 11. Alright. Now, if you want to get it, this one is 11. The hard task basically. Okay, so all that you need to do some like using some URIs, you can deal with the RESTful APIs basically. Okay, all right. And AngularJS provides the mechanism called resource. You need to learn a lot actually, in fact, to get how to use that resources. And Jyoti had a nice seminar earlier actually, in fact, on resources basically. You can fetch data from the database using the APIs to use the resource, or you can use the HTTP basically. The difference in the HTTP and the resource is that HTTP is more like Ajax call, but the resources are more towards the APIs call and everything. This RESTful services. You can deal with the data, you can load the data. All right. So yeah, I mean, I was supposed to show the unit testing framework, but I'll just take 2 minutes. All right. So the first and the foremost reason why MVC is there. Can anyone tell me just in 2 single lines, 2 lines? Why MVC? Why not traditional applications? And the separation of functions. Alright. And the second part is the testing basically. Okay. With tightly coupled system, the unit testing is quite not possible. Alright. You might have already seen that. But with MVC, you have separate MVC. I mean, the models, you have separate views, you have separate controllers. You can test them independently basically. Alright. So AngularJS comes with, there is a framework called Jasmine that you can learn. Okay. So there are like very few syntaxes. You can just learn that in just a week basically. And there's a test run that comes with AngularJS, which is Karma. Okay. So first of all, what you need to install this Jasmine and Karma basically. What you need to do is that you need to install the Node.js, right? And using once this Node.js is installed, you can just install. pass as a command npm this install g karma. You can provide the version information that will be installed. Once the this karma is installed, it will automatically fetch out the Jasmine, the libraries and everything. It will also install, so that you are like you are ready to start with the Jasmine framework basically. All right. Which one? Which one? Available in NuGet, yeah, yes, yeah. This is. I mean, especially if you are working on the .NET, then you can install it through NuGet package also. But this can be like a Node.js. You can install it as well. All right. Yeah. So once that is installed, basically, you need to create a configuration file using the karma init command. It will instruct like how to create the configuration. Okay. Once that configuration is created, basically, what you can do is that like you can go to the directive. I mean, you can go to the place where this config file resides. In case of my Angular test, basically, what you can do is that you can do a comma stat. Now see, it will load up the browser automatically. Okay, it will launch all the unit test for you. Okay, and the beauty of this unit test is that this karma test runner is that if you just change any file, okay, and save it, automatically all the unit tests will run, and it will verify the overall acceptability of your program. You do not need to do anything. It will keep watching your folders. If you change any file, all the unit tests will run automatically, and it will give you a simple report that like whether you failed or passed. Right? That's a pretty simple. That's pretty nice. In case like this is failing, you can say. All right. So I just to make it as quickly what I can do. I did some mistakes. So now see, automatically this has run. Did you see the difference? It was earlier like it was a failure. Okay, now it's a success. You may have tens and thousands of unit tests. Basically, it will run in a few seconds only, a few milliseconds only. Okay. Maybe I'll do something here. Let's say here. I don't know whether it will run or not. I haven't saved it. Okay. The time I'll save it, basically. See. Start. See, I got this error. Alright. Now I just simply it automatically this test run. So you'll be able to verify like all your unit test and everything in just fraction of minutes. Alright. Okay. If you have any questions, tell me. I'm sorry. Actually, I was not able to cope up with the agenda. In fact, I know because starting with the very basic examples and everything, moving towards a very complicated. I had thought of incrementally going through one by one, but that didn't happen unfortunately. And if time permits, I will have another more detailed seminar on the server side interaction and everything. Thank you. Do you have any questions? I took 15 more minutes than expected. No questions, right? All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.